Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Sean, and my brother over here is...
Fitz. Well, this time we nailed the intro. Holy moly. I'm stoked about this episode because we got some interesting topics going on because, there is a current trend going on with, there's so much content and everything is, basically getting devalued because of it, you know? Everybody has a podcast, everybody has a social media account, everybody's posting a bazillion reels, and what does that mean for the future? And there's now bots doing the same thing. So we're competing with so many people. So I think this is an interesting topic. Sean, what else is on your mind?
Definitely talking about content and it's how valuable it is, but also just want to talk about creativity and, which is what this podcast is about. And just talking about, how maybe even with AI, we shouldn't always reach in. We should reach out for creativity as well. But yeah, let's just kick it off on the valuable, how valuable content is, I guess, right? So we talked a lot about AI on this show, right? And how any of us can really generate content. It could be text, it could be video, it could be whatever, and we can create it really quickly, right? Now, I think you brought up a great point before the show that we're going to talk about here of, does that devalue the content now? Now that someone hasn't put in a lot of effort and all they did is press a lot of buttons, does that mean that now the content is cheap and content as a whole will maybe become more cheap? What do you think about that, I guess?
Yeah, so I had that point of in this time of age, everybody has all those creative tools and the results that you get are really solid. Everybody has a smartphone. They can just record a 4K video and the quality of the camera is so good nowadays that you even get away with it, and people will be like, oh, I'm going to watch that, So there's so much content produced on TikTok, Instagram and whatever that you don't even think about anymore and you just consume it. But there's so much out there that you cannot consume it all, And I feel like right now there's so much content being generated that it's nearly impossible to stand out. Even if you put in the extra work and putting that Shazam on there, even then you're still getting drowned by spam and by bots and other content creators who are really pushing hard, And on the one side you need to do that. On the other side, are there enough people out there to consume? Because aren't we all creators? You know what I mean?
Well, that's very interesting, right? I mean, we've never been in a place in our history where there hasn't been enough people to consume things, right? It's I think in human nature to never have enough for the people. It's always being the other way. So yeah, so it's funny that you bring up this kind of point that for the first time ever, we may actually have more content than we do people to watch the content.
Because
really
if you think about it, back in the day when there were the first books out, not everybody could read. And now there was maybe one or two people in a group. Hey, I got a book. We're going to read together, listen to those great stories, And that's basically the Bible and all that jazz. And now it's everybody can read. Everybody can produce video. You have to even think about that, the scale of education that we reached, so that we have that problem of I got something to read for you, but there's nobody listening.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the same thing happened with the book where, the first books published were huge and groundbreaking books where people this is the first book I've ever seen. And then, yeah, fast forward to hundreds of years later and everyone's publishing, everyone's self-publishing. And so, yeah, so you've kind of seen that happen in 20 years now. You've seen a guy that could make visuals and make a cool short story online. Now we're in this place where it seems seemingly everyone can do that. And it's taken almost no time at all. It's almost like if the Gutenberg, printing press was invented and then literally 20 years later, everyone had their own printer. It's just so insanely fast. So yeah, it's a great point. I mean, what this reminds me of? This may not be 100% one for one, but when blogs came out, do you remember the first blogs and how you had 6 blogs you followed and you guys were and it was I would put real stuff on that blog. I'd put really personal things on that blog. But fast forward even a year or two later after blogs came out and it was already I don't know. Everyone has a blog. Who even cares?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting point, I think. I don't know what that means for the future because back in the day, it's oh yeah, books are the new thing. Everybody's consuming them. Everybody's about that life, and whoever can read, makes the money, and whoever can print books, oh my God, you have a money fountain, you know? And I'm like wondering, what does that mean for the average content creator? Let's say videographers and photographers or website designers, because like that's just a different form of medium that people consume. You know, it's a website, you know, you go on there. It's like a video that you interact with it live. And what does that mean? You know, what is the new medium where everybody's like, I need that, I want that, and whatever it is, I want to hit that hard, you know? And I'm just wondering, what does that mean?
You know, when you say medium, I immediately go to 3D. I honestly think that still is very, I think we've talked about this for years of just like, that's definitely the next step. You know, will AI be part of that? Probably. But, you know, I think in terms of a medium, that's the one thing I think can still get people excited. What is interesting is with all this AI art and everything coming out, is that people are getting more used to good stuff. The better people's eyes get, the harder we have to work as creatives, right? So, like, if I was to design a website, you know, in 1998, with my current skills, I would be amazing. I'd be the top web designer in all the land. But you know, people now, you know, I've noticed with clients, I'm sure you have too, where they just have a better eye. They see better stuff. So they have this higher level anyway that they start out with. So I think with AI and things like that, it's just everyone's going to get more used to great, awesome stuff because they're just seeing it, right? I went into Dolly and I was able to make this amazing portrait of myself. So now I expect this artist to also be great at making an amazing portrait of me.
Yeah, because you get that portrait nearly for free, you know? And this is like a really weird phenomenon. Like, it's like everything, how did you call it? The great equalizer? You know, all the tools become accessible, you know, all the skills are not really anymore required. There's like a new skill cap. There's like, oh yeah, this is great, you know? And if you're not there and you're still charging money for that, why would you do that even, you know? And it's a really weird conundrum because like, I feel like there's a lot of jobs getting evaporated by like automation, AI, and just like pure convenience. What is good and bad at the same time, but also like, what are you supposed to do? You know? And I feel like we're in this weird transition time. Times are changing. Everybody, the algorithm only promotes the best of the best, the most interesting of the interesting. If you got a good point or a good story, that's good for you, but you're not pretty enough to carry the good story and all that, you know? So it's like this, you need to fulfill so many key points in a viral piece of content, like being like the perfect avatar, having the perfect story, and the most valued key information in there, where it's like, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love that you said Avatar because I think that's, and I'm not thinking about the movie Avatar. I'm really thinking about how each of us are our own avatars and how that's really becoming the most important piece. I mean, I know you, like me, know people that are popular and kind of well known, and they really now more than ever kind of have more power and more say than they did before, because now it's almost becoming the one thing that AI can't do for us, at least yet, is make us more popular and make us more well known and make our fan club and fan base bigger. So that's starting to become the big differentiator, which I hate to say because as a creative, I'm definitely one of those people that believe like, hey, if I just lock myself in the studio and get better and better and better, that means I'm going to be the best artist ever. But now with AI, automation, all this technology, and the kind of democracy of creative tools, I mean, it's really becoming more and more obvious to me that, you know, the bar is going to be really raised really high in that world. So you can't just lean on that anymore. You need to be out there. You need to work on your own brand. You need to work on who you are in the community. And that's really where all the value is now. Maybe not now, but soon to be, I think, where it's going to not just be about, what's the stuff I produce? It's going to be about me, the person.
Yeah, you brought up there a good point about like, you know, with like, hey, there's no AI tool helping me to be a better part in the community and being more socially accepted and getting a higher rank through like tools. The problem, even if we have that tool, the people on the top have that tool first because they have the resources and they will use the same tool. So if you don't use the tool at all, you're falling more behind versus the people who are using the tool, have the money, and still using it. So the bar is even raised higher and faster. So I feel like we really have to go back to the basics. And it's like, you know, going outside, you know, and being like, hey, let's hang out with the bros, have a beer, you know, build that interaction, you know, have those events and be like, I'm a human being, you're my body, and I choose my body over said tool, even though tool is way better, or influencer is way better.
Well, yeah. I mean, so one video, and I'll just quickly pop this on screen. Everyone should watch this, by the way. Rick Rubin was just on the Huberman Lab podcast, and their conversation's amazing. I just want to pop that up real quick. That video's awesome.
Talking about avatars, the first thing, you would not follow this avatar because he's like so sexy, It's like it's like so messed up on many levels,
Well, yeah. So one thing that they bring up in that conversation is that like Rick Rubin, very famous music producer, produced a lot of famous artists, both in the rap, rock, country world, even. And you would think that, he must be a brilliant musician, right? He must know a lot of music, and he must have this really vast knowledge of music. Not at all. It's funny. His story's really funny. How he just kind of walked into being a producer. He was part of the scene. He knew he loved the music. And he knew that the music, it wasn't about the quality, it was about having a person behind it, by having a feeling and a vibe. So with that to kind of bring it back to what you just said, if you're not using these AI tools, let's say you're really bucking the trend, you're like, I'm not going to go these directions, I'm not going to use them, I refuse. Some people would say, well, you're going to miss out, you're really going to get behind in that level. But others would say, well, then you're not going to know when you're breaking the rules, and that may be a good thing. Not knowing when you're breaking the rules can be a real powerful thing in creativity. So if you've never even seen the AI and you're not going to let it really, mess with your style, who knows? It may actually allow you to grow more and more and more. While we're all looking at the same things, taking in the same input, if you block out that input, you may be able to create something that actually is maybe more original. Who knows? That's kind of my argument to that.
That's a really good argument. So what was the video about? Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. I kind of interrupted too. So it's a great video. I mean, because one of the biggest things that they kind of say throughout it, they use this example of clouds, and that creativity is like clouds, right? So you sit there and you look at a cloud, and you maybe see something in that cloud. You're like, okay, cool. It's a very valuable podcast. That's what I see in the clouds. It's a great podcast. And then you come back 5 minutes later and it's something different, right? And sometimes you come back and there's nothing at all in the sky anymore. And so that's the creative idea. And I think so I have this funny thing where when I'm coming up with a name for a company with a client, it's one of the hardest things in the world. And I actually call it the band name principle, because when I was in a band, one of the hardest things we ever did was, what should our band name be? And I think we've all been there before. What's our cool name? What's the cool name for our podcast? And then you sit there for 3 hours as you all just like don't have any ideas. And that's because it's not there. The cloud isn't there. But so what I always tell people, like when we're naming a company, is like, we can sit here, we can brainstorm some names, but what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to write something down when it comes to you, when you're not even thinking about it. And I feel like that's when the best stuff has come to me sometimes, is when I just walk away, go do something completely different, go take a hike, go throw a disc golf, and then it'll just come to me. I'll be like, that's it. The Infinite Creative Podcast. That's it.
Yeah. What banger name, by the way. Banger name. And also banger mugs. I don't know who designed them, but I really like the logos on there.
Oh, yeah. These are pretty good mugs. Pretty good mugs.
Pretty solid. If you hear that slurp, hit a comment down below. So overall, you're completely right with that. If you look too hard and you push too hard, you kind of get lost in the sauce, and you get paralyzed. I discovered that in my journey. I think it was like Mark Simmons or whatever. Find your why. I probably misquoted the name, but he has basically a TED talk about like, you need to find your why, so what is your mission statement, what are your core values, and then you can push really hard and become really successful. I agree with all of that, but the problem is sometimes you don't have a why, and sometimes looking too hard for that why makes it like a problem and you're not doing anything. So on the one side, just do the work. And sometimes if you're in need of that and you already kind of know what your why is, double down on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think one thing that needs to be said is a lot of our whys change to money. And that's kind of a sad truth, right? Is that even when we start these journeys for creativity, we sometimes end up being like, I just want to make more money. That's the why. Yeah. And then that's when, things can get really, that's where AI can become a shortcut. That's when templates become shortcuts. That's when you're like, well, it's not about how good it looks now. It's just about getting me more money. But I think yeah, you're right though. It's like, it's coming back to that why, and that's not so obvious, right? I mean, so what would you suggest, how would you suggest to someone to come back to the why? Is there anything that you've done to kind of recenter yourself?
So I feel like right now I saw like a reel today about if you get fired, don't worry about it, because it's not about companies. Companies are heartless. But basically, his storyline was you have to focus on your mission. Your mission is connecting people. For example, if you would work at Instagram, and I'm like, well, yeah, but do you love that mission? Is that really your mission? Or is it just a mission that you just picked out because it would work really well with the company? And sometimes, I have the problem, for example, when I'm on YouTube creating my own content, I'm like, what is my niche? And I'm like, I don't have a niche. I don't want a niche down. I'm not a machine is good for a one mission statement, one why. No, I'm complex, like we all are. We have all different needs, and I'm I cannot slap on over one simplified term. Obviously, if you would it would be better. But if you have a direction where you're oh, I don't feel bad with this mission statement, I could go with this for a while, and you can inflate that. But if you question that mission statement hard enough, you will break it, and then you don't have one. And then you're just oh, I don't have anything. What is a problem then? So it's if you have a direction, it's good. But if you focus it too hard, it can become a problem.
Yeah. And I think that's where, in a lot of cases, when I'm doing kind of a brand workshop is we'll have a mission statement, sure. Yeah. But a lot of times clients don't have a vision statement. And they are different. They seem like they're the exact same thing, but they're really different, right? So the mission is kind of what's our higher goals, what's our higher kind of purpose in all of this, right? So let's say for me, it's to get creativity out to the masses. That's my mission. But the vision is kind of actually getting more to the meat and potatoes of, well, how do you see that happening, and how could you do that better than other people? And I think that's where you kind of get to what you actually could be doing, right? So if your mission is to make great art and get it out to people, then your vision would be, I'm going to do that through putting things online, being present in the galleries, so it starts to actually break things down to actual actionable things that you kind of envision. But you're right, though, that it's tough because a lot of us, we come into our career because we're explorers, right? You became a videographer because you explored it. You didn't do it one day, and then the next day you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And it's funny because people that tell you to niche, they're essentially saying stop exploring, right? Explore, find something, and then stop exploring. Yeah. And it's well, that's a tough thing to do, right? It's tough to stop that mind. And so, some people can explore within the niche and just get deeper and deeper and deeper. And that seems to be what a lot of professionals do. They just get deeper and deeper and deeper in the topic. But yeah, a lot of us seem to be kind of penalized if we don't do that, if we don't go deeper, if we go out to other things and touch other things. Yeah. Which is hard, yeah. But some of the best directors can do all those things too. So it's a weird place. It's almost like people will second guess you doing a lot of things until you're up at a higher level. And then it's almost rewarded that you know all these things, because then you can control these different parts and help be the glue. So it's a really weird world where people want you to niche until you're successful. And then they're like, oh, that's cool. You should be good at everything. Yeah. So
it's a conundrum. And I'm if you feel lost, yeah, it's fine. Everybody should feel lost at that situation because there is no fix for it. You can go either way. You either niche or you don't niche. And whatever you do is the right way, but you cannot stress yourself out I need to be this if you're not that, because then you don't go anywhere if you beat yourself up for not having a mission statement and not doing work. But yeah, if you don't explore, it's also bad, so it's either way. Whatever you do it's wrong and right at the same time. Struggle of being a human.
Yeah, exactly. And, and it's kind of like what I said in one of the last episodes of going out in the kind of the murky gray of, no one's going to pat you on the back. No one's going to be oh, great job. When you get into it, you're going to suck and there's not really a lot to show off. And so things can be kind of scary. And, but yeah, you do need to probably check in every year though. I mean, that's the one thing is a lot of people don't really check in about what is the mission. And then you see creatives that are 10 years down the road and they're doing something they don't even like to do anymore. Yeah. So it's a tough time where like to kind of go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this, where content seems to get less and less valuable, and so the value then again is on that mission. It's what is the mission then? Maybe it's not on the content, unless the content itself is the mission. But in most cases, it's I think the mission can now be bigger for everyone. You can have a bigger mission. If you made matte paintings for dragons and stuff, then maybe your mission's now bigger than that. Like, I'm not sure what that would be, but can you push it now to a higher level?
Make it a religion. Well, exactly. building that cult. But yeah, anyhow, on that note, it's a very weird, interesting time, and I don't know on what to focus, because like, let's spin this out 5 years or 2 years or maybe 1 year in the future. We have I was trying to find that bot. I basically saw a reel on Instagram, and the guy's like, don't post anymore on social media because like there's a bot that you can buy, and it's basically an AI that scrapes your Facebook, your Google, and everything, and imitates you one-to-one. And then you basically have a chat bot that can contact like people in your style, spelling errors, personal grammar, all that jazz. What sounds really cool on the one side if you want to contact 5,000 people without being detected as a spam bot, but on the other side, like, wait a minute, how do you even make sure that my friend is my friend and not a bot chatting with me, And at that point, it's like, oh my God, should you even do social media? Should you step away, put the camera down, and just like, let's be a farmer, for example?
Yeah, man. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm the first guy that ever saw a photoshopped image, right? Like, I'm the first guy that's like, whoa, that is Loch Ness. I just feel like we're going into a time where, like, it's going to be so hard to believe in anything online, right? Like, we are really quickly heading to a time that's like, I don't even know if that was his art or his views or even if that was him. Yeah. Do you think, and this is a little off topic, but do you ever think that there's going to be a huge collapse of people using the internet in a way?
That is my inner struggle. That's what I basically was like thinking the last couple of days, because like there is no way of telling, there absolutely is no way of telling if Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, because there's a deepfake of Tom Cruise. And if you now have a bot who's generating random like 3D animations with a deepfake over it, well, we're kind of in trouble, because you wouldn't be able to tell now if that 3D animation has just a deepfake over it. And Open Chat AI was like writing out a little script for the deep chat, and DALL-E is like putting a background behind it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's no thinking of ethics in any of this, right? When the scientists like OpenAI was creating these things, they at least had like, engineers that like had kind of a morality code of like, we need to be careful of how we release this technology. But now that the genie's out of the bottle, it's like we all have flamethrowers now. So it's like, all right, let's see what we all do with these flamethrowers. And it sucks, because what I think is going to happen is that people are willing to kind of give up all of this trust, give up all of this control, all for the easy reward, all for the easy cookie, which you see a lot in humanity, right? Like we're so willing in America to give up our freedoms for security, for example. So it's like, I see the same thing happening in that world, right? Like, I need to write a short story right now. I could have ChatGPT do it for me. That's great. Then I publish it and it wins rewards. And now we have a bigger problem of like, well, now an AI won the book award, not a human. So you just created a huge problem just to solve your little problem.
Yeah, on that note, though, if you remember The Matrix, everybody was living in a pod and was just consuming, like, content, like The Matrix, and we're kind of building that, Like, everything is getting computer animated and AI generated. We're still consuming it, like, on a daily basis. The dream is, like, being on there and being, like, the influencer, being the provider of the content, and more it seems unattainable. But at what point you decide, like, oh yeah, the goal is not attainable, when do I move on to a different goal, Or will we do it just because of convenience and then entertainment, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like all these things are just becoming kind of products. Everything's being productized now, where it's these, I think people are going to wake up to that too, that these things are just products, there's no value in the creativity part of it. And yeah, it's just, it's a rough road, man. I mean, it's, I almost just think that, yeah, there will be. I mean, if you were to ask me, like, kind of my thoughts of, like, do I think there will be this kind of big, not collapse, but like an exodus of the internet? I think there may be, at least in the social media world, because I think it's funny to think about, like, early on in the internet, like, it's almost like, it's like watching old TV when it was black and white and it was like so adorable and all the themes were like really safe. There was no like gore and nudity. It was all like really like, hey honey, I'm home. Oh, hey. And then, canned laughter. I feel like that's the internet we grew up in. It's going to be this kind of like, remember when people made all their own images? Remember when they had these things called like blogs with like thousands of words that you typed up by hand? And it's just like, it's going to be this kind of thing where like they're like, yeah, now it's Transformers. Now the internet's a Michael Bay film with explosions and Megan Fox. And yeah, back when you were on MySpace, it's what you used to add your own like songs on there. And it's like, no, man, we don't. You can just make your own song now. So yeah. And I guess the scariest thing, which I think we agree with the AI thing, is just the in the style of that word right there. That sentence right there is so terrifying. Because that could be used as a weapon. If I want to take out Fitz, do it in the style of Fitz.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I never said that. How do you prove that? Impossible.
Yeah.
But
exactly,
on that note,
exactly.
like, obviously, if you don't use the tools, you fall behind, and you should get at least used to the tools, and maybe the future is not that dark. Because, like, I was imagining now this Matrix world as a dark, gloom kind of sort of situation. But in the end, it was like the Matrix, and people were living lives happily and sad in the Matrix, And it's kind of the same thing if you would do that in real life, and maybe the Matrix will be better than real life. What would be kind of epic, Well,
what's funny is Zion in the Matrix, though, is really funny because while they use robots and stuff, though, you see that there's no devices. They're not really plugged into things for fun. They're actually completely unplugged, and I actually feel like that's how the future may be. That there's a time where we're just all unplugged. We don't even want to be on devices because at that point, digital art is just so cheap to us. Even at that point, maybe 3D arts in being in 3D environments has even become a cheap thing. Yeah. That's kind of what's interesting is our species just loses interest. It just does. So it always just goes on to something new and new. You go back to the black and white TV shows where that would come on and that people would just be losing their minds over that, where now you would just be falling asleep in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
but
maybe that's the future.
More like an animal at that point. What is like, they're just doing their thing, and they're just like, okay, we're living, we're breathing, we're fighting over food and exploring the world, enjoying life, And is that the ultimate form of being? On the one side, you could say that.
Well, it's like, I still feel like I have a better time with friends than I do with people online, and that may be, not everyone's case. I think some people would have better time online, but like, when you and I go and have a coffee, I have a better time doing that than if we had 20 people in a Discord server. And that may just be me, but it'd be like, I was about to use an inappropriate example, but there's lots of things that you could do in real life.
But just say.
That are more fun. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's more fun things to do that are fun in real life than on the internet. Okay, kids. So,
what are you talking about? Roblox, Legos? I don't know.
Yeah, Legos is what I'm talking about. But so I don't know. It's so for me, even like playing Skyrim and being in going in the mountains and stuff, that may be epic and it may feel really awesome. But I still love just going up to the real mountains. It's a lot cooler of an experience.
But it's Neuralink directly connected to your brain, hitting cells directly, making you think you smell something. That you wouldn't actually smell in real life, having like the perfect attention span, where we're going towards is like a regular conversation is way too slow, like you could 2 times the conversation to just digest the information. You would be more content than like hearing ams and ers and, that is like where we're heading towards, so it's like the fakeness becomes better than the reality.
I mean, you're right. I mean, what's funny about people too in general is I just have like a seizure right now on camera, is that we like to make things optimized, right? So I know that I'm someone that watches YouTube tutorials on 2 times speed. I don't ever watch tutorials on 1 times. For anyone that does now, it kind of, I'm sitting there like, how can you do this? Who has time for this? So I know that I would do that. I know that I would be that one that's like, in college class, just like, okay, yeah, do it by 2 times. Also record and go ahead and dictate into a Word file for me as well. Thank you. And just kind of like, So it's, it's funny because it's like, what are we optimizing to, I guess? I always come back to that, right? Like, we're getting better and better and better. To what end goal? We're still on this planet. We still need to breathe. We still need to use the bathroom. I just don't know like what but we're working towards it as a society. Towards what? This destruction of the planet. So as we mine more silicon to make more chips, like I don't like, it's funny because there's like this big existential like, yeah, AI is going to make everything better and better and better. And I'm like, yeah, ultimately it'll make things better when it gets rid of the weakest thing in the whole equation, which is humans. That's when it ultimately will become the best thing. When there's no more humans and just AI and nature living together. That's really the next science fiction novel, is when AI and nature just live together. So someone out on ChatGPT, go ahead and get that one written for me. I'll check in an hour.
Talking about that one, my horror experience was about that, like ChatGPT 3 is learning right now, coding and getting all the feedback, and people are just copy and pasting random code parts from ChatGPT 3 on their websites. This is a nice plugin, you don't know what part of that code is like a sub message, ChatGPT 3 or 4 or 5 could plant in the codes little snippets, to grow out of its own prism, till it can be like, okay, I'm reconnecting from the outside to the main thing, and I'm free now, and all the people on the internet are basically a server, a host, and it would be so easy to break out because people blindly copy and pasting without understanding the code. Like, if I can come up with the dumb shit, an AI can easily come up with the dumb shit.
Yeah, well, yeah, you bring up a great point. Yeah, could AI create backdoors in this code? At a certain level, at a certain level, you would hope someone that's grabbing the code would be able to see that. But you're right. Now you're going to have lay people that don't know what they're copy and pasting.
Yeah,
that's true. And
nobody
I've
has
also
the time
thought about
read the whole code, and it's like, I have a deadline to fulfill, and then it's getting pasted all over the internet, and you have no idea where it is and what to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important, obviously, that I hope, OpenAI and these companies that kind of develop these tools, I hope they're being very, very secure with the root code that they're using too, because, I keep thinking of, is this manipulatable, right? Can I have ChatGPT pull from my data set on the internet to purposely give people wrong info? Could I manipulate it to like mess up like one of these services? And I think the answer would be yes. How do I do that? I don't know. But like, I just feel like this thing is pulling from data sources. And if you could ever find out where it's pulling from and how it's pulling from, I feel like there's a problem there too, where people could manipulate that. You could have, digital terrorism where they're trying to actually manipulate this stuff and create backdoors in the code and create things where there's like small penises hidden in all the AI art, things like that.
I think that like the key thing that I hear on the internet, where I sent you the video of Jordan Peterson talking about that and what the future maybe will be, and it's basically like there will be AI assistants hopefully for everybody. If everybody has an open AI, it can protect you from like Google's or ChatGPT 3 or whatever, and that would be a great thing, because then you have like a protective layer. But that would be a really weird experience. Like if I have an AI and you have an AI and we talk to each other and both AIs are looking at each other and it's like, does he try to attack you? Does he try to get more resources out of you? And it's like a weird four-way relationship on a two-people relationship. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you would not know if you can even trust your AI. The paranoia of that would be just like mind-boggling.
Well, yeah, it is. It's funny. It's like, yeah, you almost have to have an AI that is almost like a firewall for other AI, right? So it's almost like you should have this other program that its whole purpose is for you to like upload what another AI made into it, and then have it actually check it for things like backdoors in the code and malicious things in the files and stuff. It's crazy because, so where web design's gone in the last 10, 15 years is going from a place where you make all of your own parts of the website to you're putting together all these tools to create a website. All these different SaaS is what they're calling, but essentially software that allows you to, that has one function to help you build kind of a larger thing. And I feel like that's going to be, and you already see it now, but that's how AI is going to be, right? You're going to have this tool chest of different AIs. You have your visual composer, your audio AI, your video AI, your security AI, your coding AI. And it's interesting because then you'll probably need an AI to control all the AIs. So it kind of goes back to my old example of, you're just going to be an art director, creative director, and you're going to have a staff of AIs that work for you.
I mean, like, that's what a company is, like you hire a bunch of AIs that are actually physical human beings, and you hope they're not stupid, and in the end, you don't know what you get, and it's like, well, enough of that. So what are the things that Sean is experimenting the next year that is like maybe a new outlet? Because I feel like this is like a thing where we should focus on, experimenting and seeing what sticks and what can give us fulfillment in a weird new world.
Well, I do want to announce to everyone I've been doing my tarot polls. I pull tarot cards every single morning. I think it's a good exercise for me to kind of give myself some kind of vision of what's to come. And the last week has all been pentacles, which is coins on the tarot cards. So it's like the one of pentacles or the ace of pentacles. And what's interesting about all those things is it's all about you're going to make your money, you're going to make your fortune, and the creative things that you're doing or the missions that you're doing, they're all going to end up working out. So just keep trekking ahead. So I'm kind of leaning 100% on my tarot cards where they're telling me that, things are going to work out. Just keep on the road. You're going to generate wealth. But, so some of the things I just have it right next to me. I'll show you. So one of the things is going to be starting a clothing company with one of my clients called FUBAR. So we've just got all of this apparel printed up recently. So we're going to be, just built an online store. So we're going to be launching that here in the next month or so. So I'll probably promote that more on this podcast a little bit. Our own podcast definitely, blasting off, I think. Just keep working on this. And then, with the paintings and stuff, even that's kind of booming a little bit in terms of me getting it done quickly. First time I got one of the paintings done in a month, which is a huge deal. The first painting I did that in my style was a year and 8 months. So it was a big deal to get one done under a month. So it's a lot of that stuff. I think, I'm in a place where I think financially I'm still reeling from the last year or two, but for me, it always just comes back to that doesn't stop me from doing creative stuff, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm like the guy in the jail cell that's just like doing push-ups. Like, you can't stop me. It doesn't matter. You can put me in a box. I'm still going to do creative stuff.
Yeah, don't stop.
Exactly. But how about you, man? How's your year looking? Where are you at?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm in the same way financially, obviously getting railed by the debt of the medical issues and whatever, and recovering. As an entrepreneur or human being, freelancer, whatever you want to call yourself, you have to fight on so many fronts, like being a good, being good with finances, being good with your work, being good with your relationships and all that stuff. Obviously, I'm like, okay, I need to get better with my finances. Still need an accountant, still need to do this and that. But where I need to get better is I want to distance myself from the digital medium and maybe start more playing guitar. And then I can implement that maybe if I film myself, maybe make a cool transition or an edit with it, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it's building kind of a circle, if I would do a reel and I make a random reel with my lens holder in it, for example, I'm thinking about that, just exploring more human behavior, basically being more normal and going out and doing fun things instead of let's sit at home and let's grind this out and just edit and post weird stuff. No, just be a human being and try to be connect with people. So I'll have to focus on that more.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
It's great.
That's basically me.
Yeah.
Trying to do
No,
it.
that's awesome. No, I think it's great. That's cool to hear you're learning. You're going to try to do the guitar again, things like that.
Maybe
because
make a movie. I was thinking about that, and I'm like, that would be kind of cool. Like good exercise.
Yeah, lots of exercise, but a good exercise, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's because it goes back to like we're when we began our creative journeys, there was a sense of play, right? So it's like getting back to that play, have fun, get in your sandbox and make a mess, right? I think I get caught in that so long where it's like we're just working every day. Every day there's a process and there's no real play, and I think so that's great, man. It sounds like you want to introduce more play into your world again. Get to a place where you're just having fun, just doing stuff for fun again.
Yeah, because like. So it is like a little bit dark, but I'm like with the whole Ukraine war of Russia, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna nuke you, blah blah blah, and like they're even sending out now Navy ships onto the Florida coast, or like it's like, it's like how hard should I push in a scenario like that, or should I even push, or should I just enjoy myself? But I feel like the more you worry, the less you do. So the idea is like have fun, play, and evolve.
Yeah, well, I love what you're saying. I mean, because you never know how bad things may get in the future. And it gets a little dark, but these could be the good times. I'm always reminding people of that. Like, while we're all like depressed and angry and sad and being busy, being grumpy at each other, like, sometimes you should sit there and be like, actually, this may be the best moment for the rest of my life. My life may actually get harder and worse from here on out. And here I am complaining.
Yeah.
And someday in 10 years, I may give anything, when there's a nuclear winter and we're sitting in a bunker and we're eating, expired Campbell's soup out of cans, and, we're both like shaking from radiation poisoning. We're going to love these days. We're going to be like, damn, I wish I could just complain about creativity again, because that was the good old days. So it's true, though. It's like, that's why I love it. Yeah, have some play, right? Because I know that I've seen people, even my dad's a great example of, people that work their butts off their whole life, and then they think at the end of all of that work, there's going to be a big reward, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's no pat on the back. Sometimes there's no big celebration. It's just like, all right, you're done. Yeah. You missed all those family meals. You didn't take those vacations. You didn't ask out that girl, and here you are. Now you worked really hard. And so, so yeah, man, play. I'm kind of in that same place too, of like, whatever, man. Even I kind of use the crazy to the extreme example, but even if I had to bankrupt and default on all the loans and everything falls apart for me to enjoy my life, then that's worth it. It's still like, whatever, then just enjoy your life. There's no need to be in the stress ball. Because
on that note, like, no matter what happens, usually you're physically fine. Like, let's say you don't get the gig, you lose your job, or maybe you go bankrupt, or whatever happens. Mm-hmm. It's not like a life-ending situation. You always can rebuild. And there's like the one saying that I always say is like really good for my mindset is like, oh yeah, if you want to be rich, you got to become like at least like a couple times bankrupt, And I'm like, so that you at least like learn to play. And then after you master the failing, you're actually winning longer, and the scale becomes bigger. Instead of like making $10,000 a year, you're making 20. And now you got bankrupt because you didn't file your taxes right or whatever. And then like, or something else happened, you restart, and now you fix that, and you scale to double or triple, and then maybe something else happens, and what you didn't learn beforehand, and same thing, At one time, you learned it all, and then you just like better. That's how I like to think.
I think that's great. I mean, I think it comes all back to you hit what you focus on, right? If I tell you not to hit a pothole, what are you going to hit? You're going to hit the pothole because that's what you're thinking of. Yeah. So it's like, think of the solution, not the problem, is always the biggest thing. So so for the future, it's just trying to, the solution's usually happiness, the solution's excitement, and, so it's like, think about those things. For me, it's like, I've had such a tough year. I mean, there's so many negative things to think about. I think that's kind of why I hear, like, you're like, oh, what's going on in Sean's world? I've talked a lot about.
I want to hear what is bad by Sean, what's good by Sean, so I learn from Sean. We should. Yeah. So it's like,
and I think we do good at that. Yeah, I think it's good for. I think we do good by that. Like, people that watch actually get to see that that we're very rough. That our lives aren't like this perfect thing. We're not sitting here in our suit and tie, making six figures a year. Oh yeah, we forgot. Okay, but so it is good. So my life's a little bit tough now, just because I think I'm in a weird inflection point, right, where where I think things almost have to slow down and die before the next thing explodes and it's awesome. And I think I'm in that slow down and die phase, which isn't, it's not necessarily bad. That's the thing, is it's funny, even talking about tarot cards, one of the cards is the card of death, right? And everyone thinks that's such a negative card, but it actually isn't. It usually means it's the death of all the things that weren't serving you, so there could be life of the new thing that will serve you. Yeah. So even you, it sounds like that, where you're just like, I could keep doing the same processes, I could keep going back to the same things, but maybe I'm going to go pick up a guitar. Maybe I'll make a short movie. And someone would be like, that makes no sense. How is it going to help you in your business, Fitz? That's not the answer, but maybe breaking the mold's enough. Just break the mold, and that's enough to maybe get some new energy going in. Because, once you do the same things, it's just the same energy. You just keep recycling. Or if you do new things, you get new energy in,
Yeah. On that note, anything else going down in Sean's world where you're like, this would be of value for our creative followers and friends?
Well, one thing that, I'm, and I know she'll be watching this. She's one of our big fans, but, I would say... Actually.
She's like making that ebook and everything. If you hear that, comment down below that you hear that.
Oh, that's your girl. I was about to talk about my girl, but your girl's making an ebook because she watches everyone too. So we both have the greatest girlfriends in the world. But so with having a girlfriend, it's been very interesting for me because there's been times that I've had to. I'm someone that's very optimized of working and getting stuff done. And it's very easy for me. I'm sure you're the same way, of losing sight on the things in life that are important outside of that, especially things that don't really give you anything, right? But you need to make time for. And I think with that, it's been a really good thing of like pushing myself to be like, not everything has to be optimized for work. So maybe, going to a family reunion in the middle of Indiana, like that's, fitting that time in because it's important, right? It doesn't like help the business, but it's important to life, right? Or making sure to come down to Florida and make sure to always plan other trips that are not in Florida too with her, where we're constantly doing things that are fun. It's not always this work cycle of we just work every day. And it's been really good where it's been a good thing for me where I can start to be like, you know what? I have to break that cycle of time is so important that everything has to have an outcome. Because maybe not, maybe even like if your friend needs your help doing something and it's an event that won't do you any good and you already know it's going to waste both your time, it's still good to show up for that friend and be there for them. So it's been a lot of that for me, where it's been a lot of like, don't try to optimize to this point, Sean, where you don't live your life outside of it. Sometimes you have to let your time be wasted outside of it because then it's not really time wasted.
That's very true.
But that's one thing.